Tom Cotter Mulcair, back from his summer vacation and back in his regular slot just after the 5 o'clock news. He's on the line. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Aaron, that was really nice.
Yeah, bringing back some memories there of a great TV show. Tom, how was summer off?
Summer off was great. I mean, I continued to do some stuff to keep my hand in it. I've been doing my writing in the different places that appears, the Gazette, the CTV, and the Journal de Montréal, and did a little bit of media, mostly French radio, but you got to stay warmed up, especially if you're heading into a general election as we are right now.
I feel like you're not clear on the concept of vacation, Tom.
Yeah, but we moved up north. And we sold our place in town, and now we're within just a few minutes of our children and our grandchildren, and it is delightful.
Good for you.
In addition to the fact that we're in a magnificent place.
So he's got a place up in the country, which is kind of like vacation full time. Then you can just do whatever you want to do. That's a nice gig, Tom. I like that. Okay, let's jump in. A couple of things going on today. You may have heard the clip a second ago. Justin Trudeau welcoming the German Chancellor today, Olaf Scholz, to Montreal. All over this turbine, the Russian turbine, and a lot of people I've seen have said, you know what? We should not be doing this. If you're supporting Ukraine, we should not be returning this turbine. His position was, we're doing this to maintain whatever relationship we have with countries like Germany and others who are, of course, supporting Ukraine. What do you make of this?
Well, it was expected that if Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, was coming to Canada, he wasn't going to say anything different from what Justin Trudeau's been trying to say to justify breaking our own sanctions against Russia. It didn't make a lot of sense. When we announced those sanctions, they were going to be tough, and they had a purpose to hit back at the Russians where it would hurt the most economically. That's what we could do to help Ukraine in this horrible war that Russia is perpetrating on them. And lo and behold, at the first excuse, we said, no, we're actually going to break those sanctions. We're going to send these turbines back. And then there was this whole complicated explanation. This is actually a way of calling Putin's bluff. When Trudeau went to Kyiv, and he stood in front of the Canadian embassy, and he had personally put up the Canadian flag on that flagpole, that was a really good political moment. And it was a good moment for Canada, and it was very gutsy on the part of Justin Trudeau, because we know that there was a lot of danger involved in that. And he was trying to cement the relationship that we have with the Ukrainian government. It must have been very tough for Mr. Trudeau just a few weeks later to have President Zelensky saying, look, this shows weakness in the face of the Russians. And your decisions have to be based on principle. What's the principle involved here? And there was no answer to that back from Ottawa. So they're still talking with their hands. They're still doing this whole explanation deal. And it's just not washing with the Canadian people. But that's the primary purpose for the presence of the German Chancellor right now, to try to put a bit of that very embarrassing toothpaste back into the tube.
And is it going over? Is your impression thus far? I mean, because it feels just like a photo opportunity somehow to me, Tom.
It is. And I mean, look at the whole bit around hydrogen, which, by the way, really is the way of the future. Dominic Anglade and the Liberals have a magnificent program on that. The CAC has actually done a bit of work on that. So it is really the way of the future. Canada is well positioned, Quebec in particular, because of hydroelectricity and the ability to generate the electricity necessary to hydrolyze the water and get the hydrogen out of it. This is the electrolysis that they want to do in the water, is something that Quebec can put in place really quickly. And I think that we could become leaders in it. Trudeau's going to Newfoundland, Labrador. Now, that's an interesting choice, because there they say they would like to one day have some wind power that could generate the electricity necessary to do the electrolysis and create the hydrogen. But none of that even exists. What does exist is a Norwegian company that's going to come and extract petroleum from the bed of the ocean off Newfoundland, Labrador, at a place called Baie du Nord. And this is going to break Canada's obligations and undertakings under the Paris Accord on climate change. So on the one hand, Trudeau talks a good game. He knows how to position and posture and look like he's doing something on the environment. The objective truth, Canada has the worst record of the G7 since we signed the Paris Accord. So Trudeau's trying to have, blow hot and cold at the same time. And it's really not working with people who know the environment. They know that he's falling short. And Stephen Guilbeault, of course, has a lot of egg on his face for having approved this thing.
All right, let me move on and talk about the election campaign here. Quebec Conservatives, of course, the first to launch their campaign, which is, of course, weird because there is no campaign yet officially to start until we think the 29th. Right. But, we've heard from a couple of different people today, and I wonder what you think. They talk about money that's been raised and how well the Conservatives have done. And I think the bigger story here, Tom, is how poorly the Liberals have done. So I was trying to figure this out. If the Parti Québécois, which apparently have raised quite a substantial amount of money, are able to do that because they have, of course, a base here, right? They've been around for a long time. Why can't we use the same metrics to suggest so do the Liberals and look how poorly they've done?
look, there's no question when the Liberals are not in power and the polling says that they're not about to gain power, the number and the quantity of total donations simply goes down. It's a fact. The other fact is, given the number of votes that they got in the last campaign and this complicated formula that exists in Quebec, they're going to have a lot of money. They're going to have the second biggest pot of money. And according to every poll that I've seen and everybody that I've talked to, they have every chance of forming the official opposition again. There's some hope alive with Quebec Solidaire that somehow miraculously they won't lose any seats and they'll be able to pick up a few more. I still don't see that ever giving them the ability to take over the Liberals. But what's implicit in what I've just said is that according to everything that's out there right now, even though he's only in the 40% range, and that means that 60% of Quebecers would love to see somebody else other than François Legault and his CAQ, the fact of the divided opposition, 4 parties dividing up that 60%, means that even if he stays at 40%, François Legault is going to win in a romp. That's the key metric of this campaign.
But is there no concern then that the Conservatives and Eric Duhamel had so much, momentum, if you will, up until maybe a couple of weeks ago, maybe it's still there, I don't know, can't form any kind of a credible opposition here?
No, because their base is, there's something that we always refer to in politics as the efficiency of your vote. So the vote of the Liberal Party is very concentrated, very efficiently concentrated in the Greater Montreal area. So even if they were to stay in the 20% range, where most of the polling puts them right now across the province, in Montreal that still gives them almost all of their seats back. There might be 1 or 2 that are in play, with perhaps the CAQ, playing spoiler. I don't see any of these new parties being able to break through and win any seats. I was listening to in great detail today to Mr. Standish's non-answers to the very clear questions David Hertel put to him. And frankly, for a guy who boasted that his party was going to be active, and this was his favorite line, from Baie d'Urfé to Baie-Comeau, when I saw him during the summer say, oh, by the way, the midpoint between Baie d'Urfé and Baie-Comeau, that's Westmount, and that's where I'm going to run. It shows that he's trying to concentrate on getting himself elected, and I don't think that the party's going to be able to do very much.
Okay.
We'll see. I was thinking about the fact that, I keep wondering what's going to stick to the CAQ, right? So they seem to blow it on so many fronts. And I'm wondering if when kids go back to school in the next couple of weeks and there's no teachers and no lunchroom supervisors or very few, if that's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah. And to go right back to the Clinton era, that famous expression, it's the economy stupid, because when people are having trouble already putting gas in their car and they, a real 10% increase in spending, where does a family that's got, let's say, a monthly budget of $3,000 or $4,000, where are they supposed to find $300 or $400 extra dollars? They don't have them. And so this is really a pocketbook issue that is going to be hitting the average family. But where do they put their votes? What's the answer? And that's the beauty of being the CAQ right now. There's no obvious second choice. Now, if Anglade can put up an antenna that's powerful enough and say, look, of the 4 opposition parties, we're the only one who can take this guy on. If she can deliver that message, she might have a chance to hammer through. Quebec Solidaire will be trying to wail away on that issue as well. You're right, healthcare remains a huge problem. We're seeing the problems already in the schools. But one of the issues that's been hitting the front pages the most, on the French side anyway, has been sustainable development. Mining projects, graphite mines, Lower Laurentians, Lanaudière, Outaouais, huge communities, all CAQ territory, people up in arms, very upset. They're even planning a graphite mine in a biodiversity reserve in the Upper Laurentians. So this is the type of thing that people are keeping their eyes on. It goes right back to the Horn Foundry up in the Rouyn-Noranda. People are saying, why have they been allowed to poison people? We can measure this. We know that there are increased lung cancers, and you're still letting them get away with it. That's the type of thing that people can relate to. That's not abstract. That's concrete.
Tom. See, I'm so used to having Jim in this break.
That's fine.
Tom, you have today the premiers of Ontario, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI meeting in Moncton on healthcare. I asked the question after 4 o'clock today on a clearly broken healthcare system, not just here, but I heard horror stories over the weekend from Ottawa emergency personnel there, Saskatchewan sending patients to Alberta. What comes from this? What do you expect will come from this?
I think that this is a much more mature approach on the part of the provinces than what we've seen up until now. It's interesting to see that Doug Ford is playing that leadership role, bringing people together. Legault's, of course, not there because he's heading into an election campaign. That's understandable. And he doesn't want to say that the feds have a word to say about healthcare, although he's always happy to take the billions of dollars we get from Ottawa for healthcare. But a mature conversation has to be held right now. We know that when the deal was set some 50 years ago to bring in free, universal, transportable Medicare in Canada, part of the deal was it was 50-50. Now, the feds and the provinces. Now it's more like the provinces paying 70% and the feds paying 30%. So that's not sustainable. But it has to be more than just asking the feds to send more money. At the same time as they're asking for more money, the provinces want less accountability. They don't want to have to say whether or not they're producing results, whether their system is good. Ontario is heading towards more and more private health care. That's going to set up a fight with the feds. I think that instead of setting up these fights, what the country needs now is the best people from the provincial level, from the federal level, and indeed the big cities, because cities like Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver play a huge role in public health right now. We've got to have a convening around a neutral table of people in good faith to say, how do we fix the system? That's what we're due for. And what I like about what I'm seeing in the Maritimes today is this is the first attempt where it's not just finger pointing and name calling.
Tom Mulcair, back from vacation, and
Yay.
Great to have back on air. Tom, thanks so much.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Good
Take
having
good
you
care.
here. He'll be back, of course, tomorrow morning with Andrew Carter at about 7:40.